You are reading your military medical records, and on page 50, there is a line that contradicts what actually happened. The wrong knee, a date that is off by a year, a visit you remember clearly, written up as something else entirely, or the one that stings most, a condition treated 10 times in uniform that appears 0 times in writing. So the instinct is to stop everything and get the record fixed. Hold that instinct for a minute, because a wrong line in a service treatment record does not kill a claim by itself, and the fix is not one process. There are 2 completely separate correction tracks, run by 2 different authorities, and picking the wrong one costs a year. By the end of this video, you will know which of the 2 tracks your specific error belongs on, the form each one runs on, what happens when a correction gets denied, and why a denial still leaves you better off than doing nothing. Start by naming the error, because the 3 kinds do not get handled the same way. The first is a factual error. The record states something provably untrue, and your own file contradicts it. A post-operative note listing the left knee when the surgical consent and the imaging both say right. That is a fact, and facts are correctable. The second kind is an incomplete entry. The visit happened, a note exists, but the note captured a fraction of it. You described daily back spasms, and the medic wrote musculoskeletal complaint, self-limiting. Nothing in that entry is false, which matters because a correction request only reaches things that are wrong. The third kind is a missing diagnosis. You were treated repeatedly for the same symptoms, and no provider ever assigned a diagnosis to them. The treatment entries are real. The label was never written, and that is not a correction problem at all because there is nothing in the record to correct. So take the first kind, the factual error, because that one has a real door. Your military health record is protected health information, and under the HIPAA privacy rule at 45 CFR 164.526, carried into the Defense Department by DoD Manual 6025.18, you have the right to request an amendment to information in your own record. Here is how that request runs. You submit it in writing to the military treatment facility that created the entry, you identify the exact entry, and you state what is wrong and what the correct information is. The facility has 60 days to act on the request, with one possible 30-day extension that has to be explained to you in writing. So what happens if the facility says no? Denials are allowed on specific grounds. The entry was not created by that facility. The entry is not part of your designated record set, or the facility determines the record is already accurate and complete. That last one is the common answer, and it is where most veterans think the road ends. The road does not end there. On a denial, you have the right to file a statement of disagreement, and your statement travels with that entry from then on. Anyone who pulls the record pulls your version alongside it. You did not change the entry. You made sure the entry can never be read alone again. So when does the second track open? Under 10 USC 1552, every branch runs a Board for Correction of Military Records, or Naval Records, on DD Form 149. Those boards are the highest appellate review authority in the military, which is exactly why they are not where you start. Lower remedies have to be exhausted first, and that denial from track 1 is what proves you exhausted them. Now the clock, because this one is statutory, Section 1552 says no correction may be made unless the request comes within 3 years after you discovered the error. The board may excuse a late filing in the interest of justice, but the board is not required to, and the explanation for the delay is on you. And here is what a board petition actually turns on. The burden sits with you to show the entry was in error or unjust, and the board weighs documents created at the time far more heavily than a recollection written decades later. A civilian hospital record from the same month, a line of duty investigation, and personnel orders that contradict the entry. Without a document like that, a petition is a long road with a thin shoulder. So the obvious question is whether you wait. Do not freeze your VA claim while a correction runs. Those tracks take months, sometimes more than a year, and 38 CFR 3.155 gives an intent to file a 1-year life. Waiting on a correction is how veterans watch that year expire and lose the effective date that carried their back pay. Run both at once instead. The correction request goes to the facility or the board on its own timeline, and your claim goes to the VA on yours. Nothing in Title 38 requires a military record to be corrected before the VA can decide a claim on it. So what about the incomplete entry and the missing diagnosis, the two kinds that no correction process can reach? Those never belonged on either track. Those get answered with evidence, and that is a different set of tools entirely. Start from what the regulation actually requires. Under 38 CFR 3.159, the VA decides on the entire evidence of record, not on service treatment records alone. A thin entry is not a verdict. A thin entry is one piece of a file you're still allowed to add to, so add the context the entry never captured. Your own account goes on VA, Form 21-4138, the statement in support of claim. Statements from people who served alongside you go on VA, Form 21-10210. Both are competent lay evidence under 3.159, as long as each person stays inside what that person personally saw. Then bridge the entry itself. A qualified civilian physician can review the flawed or thin note, review your full treatment history, and write an opinion explaining why that entry reads the way it does, not to overrule the record, to explain what a 5-minute sick call note was ever capable of capturing, and that work has a rule waiting for it. Under 38 CFR 3.102, when the evidence for and against a point sits in approximate balance, the benefit of the doubt goes to you. A record with a hole in it is not automatically evidence against you, which is exactly what a well-built file is there to demonstrate, and you should not have to guess which track your error belongs on. We built you the correction path. Describe the entry that is wrong, and it tells you which track applies, which form runs it, what the clock is, and what to file when the answer is neither. The link is in the description. It's built, it's waiting, it's yours. Use it. Nothing here is a promise of any particular rating. Every claim is different. What we give you is the cleanest way we know to execute. For Guard and Reserve, women veterans, step-by-step or benefits news, subscribe to the channel that fits your fight. A wrong entry is one problem. No entry at all is another. Records get lost in transfers, and millions burned in a record center fire in 1973. There is a defined process for building a claim when the file is gone, and that is the final episode in this series. Watch that one next. There's gotta be another way, and this is it.